Hi, welcome to the video. Today I've got Duncan Brightside, who is an early years leader and also a PSHE coordinator, and today he's going to share with us some books.
What I wanted to share was talking mostly about diversity and in particular relation to sexuality and gender. February is LGBT History Month, which personally means a lot to me, being a gay man. And being able to find out about the historical societal changes that have happened regarding sexuality and gender, but also as an early years teacher I find it's an important time to really focus and educate the children on the diversity that they may or may not come across in society, and trying to move away from the cisgendered heteronormative traditions that they've grown up with. Actually challenging those and finding out, helping them to find out about the diversity that we come across in society. And I do that through a range of different stories. So for example, first one is quite an old one, and it's a bit Americanized, Molly's Family, by Nancy Garden, which is essentially about a young girl who has two mums. And they have a bring your family to school day, and of course Molly gets some negative reactions from the other children in her nursery because she has two mums and they don't understand why she has two mums when it should be a mum and a dad. So this is really good for sharing with the children because it's set in a school environment, so it actually makes it even more relatable for them, and it does raise a lot of discussion around how families are different. So it's nothing to do with the fact that they're lesbians, it's just the fact that actually Molly's family looks different to other children's families, which again is really relatable to young people, 4 or 5-year-olds who all have different experiences of their families.
It's a nice discussion that can be made from that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tango makes 3. This has been around for a while, but it's based on a true story of 2 male penguins from Central Park Zoo who basically fall in love and want to raise a baby penguin. And the park keeper finds a spare egg which he gives to them, and they raise them as a family, which is another one encouraging children to talk about, well, how a family is different. Does it really matter whether you've got 1 parent, 2 parents, what gender those parents are? And actually it's just about love, which is really sweet, really nice. And it's a story that I really enjoy reading with the children, and the fact that it's based on a true story makes it even more powerful, I think.
I think what's really nice is that these books will bring up those discussions, and even, we have children who have single parents, but this idea of the difference between families.
Absolutely, and I think whenever you raise the prospect of LGBT issues, particularly in the early years and sometimes in primary schools, there's that knee-jerk reaction of, oh my god, you're teaching 4-year-olds about gay sex. It's not about that. It's not about sexuality as such or gender. It's just about teaching children about the diversity that they will come across in society, because as we know, young children are very egocentric. It's their own little bubble. That's what they know and that's what they understand, and as educators I feel it's our duty to expand that bubble, and help them to understand that not everybody is the same, and take them out of that little bubble. So with that in mind, I have this one is really good for challenging gender stereotypes. Maurice Micklewhite and the Tangerine Dress. Basically a little boy goes to school every day, puts on the same dress because he loves it. He loves the way it feels, he loves the way it sounds when he moves in it. And of course I think we've all known a child like that. And again, it's about challenging the idea that, oh, you're a boy, you're not supposed to wear dresses, or boys in dresses can't do this, that or the other. And actually what's nice is, again, it's being set in a school setting, means that it's more relatable for the children. And quite often you will have a child in the class who's talking about, well, you know, the boys wanted to play with Barbie dolls or girls wanting to build with Lego and shoot superheroes. Actually developing that understanding that you don't have to conform to these gender stereotypes which society has generally forced upon them, even at a very young age of 4 and 5.
We do experience that even with, like myself as a male in early years. They wouldn't expect maybe for me to wear pink. Pink's a girl's colour, and that comes up as a big discussion a lot of the times. Or as with myself, you know, going in and having a daughter now and going into the setting and playing with the dolls, and you'll have boys and girls come over, but you do have that look from some of the children and, well, the dolls, why are you in the home corner? This is our thing. But I'd say that works both ways, really. I'd be just as concerned if, you know, the boys aren't accessing the home corner just as much as some of those girls that are maybe saying, okay, I'm not going to go and play with a Lego because that's more of a boy thing. You know, I think the children need to have an experience of all the areas of the classroom, all these experiences across.
Absolutely. This one is absolutely ancient. This copy isn't, but the story dates back from the 30s, the story of Ferdinand, which they recently made into an animated feature. And it's essentially about a bull who doesn't want to fight. He just wants to sit under the tree and smell the flowers. And I think it's kind of been adopted as an allegory for gay men, in the sense that actually we don't want to conform to that standard big butch masculine ideal. But the essential message is about actually just following your heart and being who you want to be, and not worrying about what anybody else thinks you should be or who they think you should be. Actually standing up for yourself and saying, no, just because that's what's expected of me doesn't mean that's who I'm going to be. That's really nice. And what's interesting is because the drawings inside are quite traditional and old, and it does date back from the 30s, so it's quite interesting just looking at it, and again having that discussion around, well, how is it different to the books and the films that you might see today, because it is so old, and why do you think the story has endured for so long? Because it is so old. What is it about that key message that has endured with the children of today?
Very interesting.
One of my personal favourites, because this kind of relates to me, a peacock among pigeons. Essentially, a peacock grows up among the pigeons, wants to fit in, so tries to adapt himself to look like a pigeon, walk like a pigeon, sound like a pigeon, and of course it doesn't work. And then he goes off into the big wide world and actually finds a community which is a lot more accepting of him as he is, and the final realization that actually he is beautiful as he is. And personally I relate to that a lot, because obviously growing up, I was at school in the 80s, section 28 was still in force, so when I actually came out in school, the school couldn't do anything about it, and I felt like I was being forced to fit in with everybody else. And it wasn't until mid-20s when I started to realise actually I can be who I want to be, and I don't have to conform to any kind of stereotype. So on a personal level this is really relatable, but again it's really good for children to understand that actually you don't have to conform to any stereotype that you want to. You can be who you want to be, and you are unique and beautiful in your own way. And the illustrations are amazing. They're brilliantly colourful.
You're talking about, you said about you work with a support group for schools with regards to supporting students that are identified as having difficulties as they're growing up. And some of the, you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so we run an organisation called Prism LGBTQ, which is a group set up for young people between 13 to 18 mostly, who identify as LGBTQ wherever on the spectrum, and quite often we find we're getting referrals from schools and families because these young people are having real difficulty coming to terms with their sexuality or gender. And actually I think that the more we challenge these stereotypes and talk about diversity in general terms from an early age, means that as the children get older, they'll have less difficulty coming to terms with it, because we'll be a lot more open, and visibility is so much better than it used to be. I remember when I was growing up, I think my only icon would have been Boy George, but now there are so many more celebrities and visibility out there of queer icons like Tyler Oakley on YouTube, Ollie Alexander in the from Years and Years, just doing things their own way, being who they want to be, and actually being really positive role models for the young people. But we have a role to play in that as well as educators, starting from a very young age, teaching children that actually it's not just a white, cisgendered, heteronormative society. There is so much diversity out there, and they may not come across it personally, but we need to be teaching them that that diversity is out there, so that when, as they grow up, they're more tolerant, they're more accepting of these things in themselves as well as other people. And
that should feed into the ethos of the school as well. With regards to early years, we always think about building that environment where they feel safe. And you know, these kind of activities and books where the discussions come up are going to help provide that.
Absolutely.
And enrich that.
Yeah, definitely. I think
you said with regards to the resources that you give teenagers, you know, it would be nice to think that they could have had more of that maybe from an earlier age, in a primary age, in some of the schools.
Absolutely, I think definitely. A lot of the issues we come across is just simply they have these feelings, but they don't know what to do with them. And as we know, being a teenager is hard enough anyway. But actually using activities like this, having those discussions from an early age, will just give them the confidence, I think, and the knowledge and the understanding that it doesn't matter. Your gender and your sexuality, they're all just social constructs, and at the end of the day, it doesn't form who you are. It is part of who you are, but it doesn't form who you are, and it shouldn't inform who you are.
And I think that was really good you were mentioning about addressing stereotypes as well. I do think that's really important, that children see, you know, they've got the choice to be whoever they want to be, whatever they want to do.
And what I still find surprising even now is that those stereotypes are almost really ingrained in young children, 3, 4, 5-year-old, and I spend a lot of time trying to break down those boundaries and expectations, because they shouldn't be there. Because all we're doing is stifling, by leaving those barriers in there, we're stifling children's imagination, their creativity, their self-confidence.
Definitely, I agree. Brilliant. Thank you for sharing your books today. And if you want to get any of those books, I'm going to put an affiliate link below to my shop, which has all of the books that you can order from Amazon. Okay. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Right. Bye.
Bye.